Martin Buber on I It and I Thou.
Welcome to an episode on thinking education relationally. In this episode, we explore Martin Buber's distinction between I-it and I-thou relationships and what it might mean for teaching and learning in higher education.
Relating through distance.
In universities, we spend much of our time relating to the world through distance. We analyse, classify, measure, assess. We organise knowledge, people and places into systems that can be managed, compared and evaluated. Much of this is necessary, but it also shapes how we come to experience the world, each other and ourselves as educators.
I-it as a sensibility.
The philosopher and theologian Martin Buber offers a way of thinking about this orientation. One of the most influential aspects of his work is the distinction he draws between two fundamentally different ways of relating to the world, what he calls I-it and I-thou relationships. Buber suggests that we often treat the world as an it, as an orderly, comprehensible collection of things and objects to be experienced, analysed and used. When we relate in this way, we position ourselves as detached observers. What confronts us can be compared, categorised, described objectively, stored, recalled and deployed when needed. This I-it orientation is not simply a personal attitude, it is a sensibility. It shapes how subjects come to see themselves as separate from others, human and non-human alike, who then appear as entities to be understood, managed or used. In contemporary life, this sensibility shows up in many everyday practices. Dating websites, for instance, can become spaces where people present themselves and others as selectable profiles, optimised for self-gratification. Nature, too, can be reduced to a backdrop for leisure, useful, pleasant and ultimately interchangeable, whether as a site for a barbecue or a weekend escape. These examples are not moral failures. They illustrate how deeply normalised the I-it orientation has become.
I-thou and the return of relation.
Buber contrasts this with what he calls the I-thou relationship. Here, the distance between self and other, whether another person or another being, begins to break down. For Buber, this way of relating precedes the I-it orientation in our lives. Think of very young children for whom the world is not yet clearly divided into subjects and objects. Their experience is characterised by intense connections, where existence is bound up with others, human and non-human alike. As we grow up, we largely lose touch with this mode of relating. The world comes to appear as a series of things that can be analysed or used. We enter more fully into I-it relationships. Now, importantly, Buber does not argue that the I-it orientation is wrong or dispensable. We could not live without some degree of detachment. The problem arises when the I-thou relation is suppressed altogether. When this happens, something vital is lost.
Receptivity, dialogue and risk.
The I-thou relationship cannot be produced on demand. It cannot be engineered or guaranteed. Instead, it requires a form of receptivity, a willingness to remain open to moments in which boundaries between ourselves and others begin to soften, and to attend carefully to what such moments ask of us. In human relationships, Buber describes this as inclusive dialogue, an engagement in which we allow instincts for connection to guide us towards a deeper understanding of another person's wishes, feelings and thoughts. This kind of inclusion involves risk. It demands trust from all involved, and it carries the possibility of harm or misuse when boundaries become less rigid. Yet Buber argues there is also a vitalism here, an energy, an intensity that is largely absent from I-it relations, which tend to remain comparatively flat.
Kairos and more than human encounters.
Experiencing the I-thou relation also involves a different sense of time. Rather than clock time, what the ancient Greeks called chronos, Buber speaks of the actual and fulfilled present. Time and space, as we actually understand them, can function as ways of holding the world at a distance, of containing and mastering it. In contrast, I-thou relations unfold in lived time, or Kairos. This may sound abstract, even strange, but many people recognise it from experience. Think of moments when you're dancing with someone and become absorbed in the moment, no longer tracking time. Or those conversations where hours passed unnoticed because attention is fully engaged. In such moments, time does not disappear, but it is no longer foregrounded. The relationship itself becomes central. In his later biographical writings, Buber reflects on how I-thou relationships can extend beyond human encounters. He describes an experience from childhood when, as an 11-year-old boy, he stroked a horse. He writes, "I felt the life beneath my hand. Something that was not I and yet let me approach, confided itself to me, placed itself in the relation of thou with me." This experience ended, Buber notes, the moment he became self-conscious, when he turned his attention back towards his hand and away from the relation itself. On another occasion, Buber describes pressing his walking stick against an oak tree and experiencing this encounter as a form of dialogue. Consider how this contrasts with environments designed primarily for use and mastery. During the COVID pandemic, when playgrounds were closed, children began climbing trees instead. These encounters were not scripted, not outcome-driven, and not optimized for safety or performance in the same way as conventional play equipment.
What does this mean for education?
What, then, might all this mean for sustainability educators in higher education? We might wonder whether fostering conditions in which I-thou relationships can emerge between teachers and students and each other, and students and the world could allow sustainability issues to be felt rather than remaining objects of detached analysis. At the same time, university culture presents significant obstacles to this possibility. Time pressures within curricula, performance indicators, assessment regimes, and large class sizes all work against immersive or relational forms of engagement. Physical spaces such as lecture theatres may reinforce distance rather than connection. Professional norms rightly emphasise boundaries, in part as a response to historical abuses of power. It may also be that attempts to cultivate I-thou relationships are experienced as uncomfortable or even threatening. Distance can feel safer. Inclusion can appear intrusive. We might reasonably ask whether there is a dark side to relational pedagogies or whether some forms of separation are ethically necessary. Buber himself invites skepticism. His work does not offer a program to be implemented, but if we are serious about challenging an orientation to the world that treats people, places and ecosystems primarily as resources to be managed and used up, then remaining open to the possibility of I-thou relationships may open questions that our dominant educational practices struggle to address. And perhaps the question is not whether I-thou relationships can be fostered intentionally, but where, despite our best efforts to contain and control, they already appear in our teaching, and what we choose to do when they do.